Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to my channel. So, it was a late night because I was watching the New York Giant Buffalo Bill game to the very end. I almost fell asleep, but I had some stew going in the slow cooker, so I had to wait up for it. So I did. So a little steam, and this is really done now. I just let it go all night. And what I did different, I'm going to add a little cornstarch to this to thicken it up, but it's really quite velvety and beautiful. I had some baby carrots to use up, some celery, a couple potatoes, no big deal. Some Worcestershire sauce, which I never buy, but I just kept feeling like I need to buy Worcestershire because I was going to make, there you are. You hiding behind. Where's Dustin? Where's Waldo? He's all comfy in his pillows. I was looking around for my cat. I'm like, where'd he go? I was at Wegmans, and I'm always talking about they have those today's specials at every store with the meat department. So I never eat steak. Never. I remember one Christmas I was at my cousin's house, and for quite a few Christmas Eves and stuff, we would go there. And that particular Christmas Eve, I think he went on like a meat, kind of like more of a meat diet versus carbs, and we had steak and these big potatoes, and and I literally had not had a steak since I got married. I really just never ate red meat, red steak. I would always choose chicken Parmesan, veal Parmesan, ground beef or chicken, turkey. And I just was like, I just kept repeating myself, like, oh my God, this steak is so good. I haven't had steak in so long. And so it's been that long. So it's been about 7 years since I had steak. And I thought it's time. So I was looking at Wegmans, and I found a New York strip steak for $5. It was marked down from $17. $5.78. And I thought, what could I do with this? Because I didn't just want to make a steak. So bad. And I started talking to a gal there that she's worked in the meat department there for 40 years, and she's getting ready to retire. And I said, I usually buy the beef stew if I'm actually going to make a stew. And usually if I make a stew, it's for a meal train and somebody requests beef stew. And so I was just going to pick up this beef stew and make a beef stew. And she said, you know what? Grab that today's special New York strip. She said, because the beef stew is actually a tougher part of the meat, whereas the New York strip is a part of the cow that they never use. It's a strip of their body that just kind of there, but they don't use it, so it's not tough. It's tender. And she said, if you throw that in the slow cooker, sear it, throw it in the slow cooker, it's going to melt in your... And it is. So now I'm going to look for the today's specials all the time, so I thought I'd pass that on to you guys. I'm just a newbie at stews because I didn't really do them when I was married. My former late husband used to we would do beef and spatula, garlic beef and spatula, garlic chicken and spatula. And his mom made a beef stew using regular chuck roast. And that would be their, like, Italians would have sauce on Sunday. They would have beef and spätzle. A couple times I had sauerbraten with venison there. I thought I was eating beef, but I wasn't. I found out I was eating Bambi, and then I got upset. But I just don't really eat a lot of red meat. I'll cook it, but I'm not really educated in the cow and what part of the cow is more tender, and a porterhouse from a New York state or prime rib or any. I just don't. That's one area I didn't know much about, and she really schooled me on it. I was so glad. She said, "Oh yeah," she said, "wait for the today's special. Grab a couple of New York strip steaks and pair it with a chuck steak, and cut up your own, flour it, sear it, throw it in there, your vegetables, let it go, and you'll have it." And she said, if you don't want to do that, just sear the whole steak and throw it in there. It'll be like a pot roast. So that's what's going in the slow cooker. I said I would talk about grief on Mondays, and I will. Later on today, I will do a video. I want to talk about, just a little heads up, sneak peek. I want to talk about when we are untrue to ourselves and believe a lie. And I am going to talk about multiple personality disorder, what used to be called MPD, and what is now called D.I.D, dissociative identity disorder. I want to talk about how I talked myself out of having that for years. And that really was the big old integration. I had to come to my senses and say, I'm just me with a lot of different emotions, feelings, expressions, and fears. I learned this as a defense mechanism, and I can unlearn it. And you can too. So the biggest grief, regret, although my mom dying, my dad dying, my dad died in February, I really started to feel like orphan. Our family had a big blow up, and the part of my family that I was with for like 30 years with my kids were just blown apart. That's a lot of grief. The world in general, the way it is a lot of grief. But I'd have to say my number one grief as a woman, as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister, as a cousin, as a niece, as a friend, would be that I wasn't my best self because I believed I couldn't be. I believed I was all these other aspects of my personality, which were never separate personas. And everybody else had to go along with it because I believed it. That was my truth. I was being told, this is what you are. This is how you respond to this. Sort of like people are told, well, this is how you respond to a trigger, or this is a self-defense mechanism, which dissociating is. But I never believed in my heart that going from post-traumatic stress automatically went off the Richter scale to possibly, for some, becoming other people. See, that's what we're taught. And I have to credit my therapist on this because he would say to me, you don't have to leave. He would try to interrupt that switch to a different persona. Now, you're doing this subconsciously. I was doing this subconsciously because I grew up doing this. So, in a sense, is there MPD, D.I.D. Yes, but it's something that can be interrupted and stopped. It can be unlearned. And nobody really wants to talk about this because they believe they had their traumas, and their truth is that they cannot change. That's not true. That's not true. Anybody can change. Their truth is their brain is set up this way. This is how their personality works. It's a personality disorder. No. And I'm going to say again, for people that are going through addictions and recovery, it is a choice. If you are still believing the disease trauma models that, I just get triggered with this. Okay. The world is full of triggers. If we ran around trying to avoid every trigger, we wouldn't be doing much living. So if you're told you're always going to relapse, you're always going to kind of default into this because this happened to you or that happened to you, you will. You will. We are very suggestible people, and we have been very programmed to believe things that just aren't true. And I want my truth to be true. And my truth before was not true. My truth before was what I believed to be so. And even though that was being manifested, and that was what my family was seeing, and that was what I was experiencing, and that was what life was, I'm not saying that wasn't what it was. I'm saying it didn't have to be. And you don't have to go through some huge integration process of let's get all the ages of the parts of you together. Let's get all the versions of you, aspects, egos, alter egos together. Let's buddy up. I remember my therapist and I did combos where we would go into a session with 3 parts of me. And just, I would go home so exhausted and wiped out and just wrecked from that. You couldn't work. You couldn't mother. You couldn't take care of you. Just, of course you would have a headache. Okay. And I remember my therapist wanting to talk to different parts of me to understand my memories and trauma. You don't really have to do that. You have to deal with, okay, this is how you're acting now, and you don't need to. The danger is gone. The expression is trapped in your body and is causing you pain. You need to express yourself. You really just need to express yourself. So there are a lot of people talking their truths, but you got to make sure your truth is actually reality and the truth. So when I hung out with a lot of people that were diagnosed MPD, D.I.D., and I didn't even have a computer until 2003, 4. I saw how really into this they were, playing with it on the internet. And I started to back away from it and think, wait a minute, this is really messed up. And there are people on YouTube that it's a game. It's a role acting game. And that wasn't what I was dealing with in my experience. So, but there is a whole group of people. And the other thing that's going around right now that's very trendy, be careful of trends. When there's media awareness and big, to-dos in the media and books and everything, and everybody's talking about it. I remember when Asperger's, when all of a sudden people didn't They weren't just ADD or attention deficit disorder. They had neurodiverse brains. And it was like everyone had a neurodiverse brain. Everyone had a special brain. Okay. And everybody was on the autistic spectrum or on the spectrum from something to something. Yeah, we all are. The whole world is, the whole world really is, because nobody can define what normal or abnormal really is. So it really comes down to learning how people process and how they cope emotionally and physically and how it affects them. And I've seen both sides of the coin. I've seen people that really struggle with dyslexia, really struggle with attention deficit disorder, hypertension, auditory processing deficit, tactile stimuli. These are real things. These are all real things. But when we say we just can't help it, we're going to stay that way forever, it's really not true. There are things we can do to manage. There is adaptable clothing. There is dimmer lighting. It doesn't mean you have to be special. You just have to incorporate these things into your life. And they're not disabilities. They're not. And one of the greatest disability out there that I hear people talking about all the time is the addiction, substance dependence disease model, which now goes back to a trauma model, or the person is bipolar and they were self-medicating and now they're addicted too. And they're told in rehab, they are told, you will relapse again. You will want to drink again. You will drug again, and you will fall. Well, that's a get out of jail card. That's just go fucks up. They have given you permission, and me permission, to, I remember one doctor saying, well, you will always default to a different persona when you're in a stressful situation. And that's just something you're going to have to learn to live with. And I thought, wow, isn't that convenient for you? And so many people, but not me. So don't stop being curious about what you're being told are absolutes, because the only thing absolute is we're all going to die. You're going to eventually have to pay taxes. We're all going to die, and there is an afterlife. And that is the only thing that is absolute in this world. And there will be grief and suffering. So in talking about grief, the only grief I have, the biggest grief I have, is more like a regret. So that's something you really want to chip away at and work at. I feel like I had so many great conversations with my dad before he died. Through the years, as adults, we worked out our stuff. And he said some of the things he needed to say to me, and I said a lot of the things I needed to say to him. Maybe right before he died, there may have been a few things he wanted to say or take back, or I may have wanted to, but I feel like we're in a good place. My mom, I feel the same way. I feel like she did the best she could with where she came from, what she had to deal with, and what she was dealing with every day. Did she make a lot of mistakes? Yes. Did she hurt me in the process? Yes. Did both my parents hurt me in the process? Yes. Did they plan on it? No. And then there are just mistakes people make. And more, I'm just becoming more and more compassionate to see, not to make excuse, but to see where it all comes from. We're all just working out our own stuff and unfortunately taking out on others when we don't know better. So we got to work on that, right? But really, you guys that have known me over the years, I've advocated for healthy multiplicity. The media misperceptions that are out there. You don't have to believe that stuff. You don't have to be like that. Nobody is like that. It's the extreme. It's not to be feared. More people are multidimensional than not. Depending on what you believe in, most people are plural, born plural, body, mind, spirit. So we're already plural. It would make sense that more people than not have many aspects to their personality. And some of the behaviors in those aspects are not nice, and some of them are great. And, just embracing all of it is the answer, and not using it as excuse. Because I really regret that I believed that I would always be sick, or that I would always be unable, and that I lost so many years, and my kids lost so many years, and the secondary survivors, my cousins lost years, my family lost years. I literally sat still and just went to therapy for 27 years. I was constantly keeping track of myself. Who said what? Who did this? I was constantly journaling every day. What time I woke up, how much I weighed, what I ate. If I bought something, if I used my checkbook, I was constantly keeping track of myself, because I was being told that I wouldn't remember if other parts of me did things. And that could be true for a majority of people that are first diagnosed, but that was not my experience. And when you talk about lost time, what my experience was, I was moving too fast. And I'm going to say it again. When you introduce medication to keep the stress down so you don't switch, split, dissociate, you're actually causing more dissociation and lost time. So if there's any substance involved, an anti-anxiety medication, an antidepressant, I'm not against I'm not against medication for a short time if you need it. But if you're being given a nerve pill that makes you sleepy, or a pill that kind of wipes out your day, I wonder about people that were on Ambien and Lunesta and all these things that go to sleep, take this, and you might not remember waking up, getting in a car. You might not remember you got up, you ate. I literally would look at everything in the refrigerator, write it down. And if it was missing the next day, I would check the garbage. I had such a fear of just living, because I was alone at home. And what anybody could say I said something I didn't say. Anybody could say I did something I didn't do. Anybody could say anything. It's the most vulnerable, crazy-ass mental disorder to put on yourself, to allow yourself to be diagnosed. It may be your experience for a while, but you can unlearn it. Best example I have for this is a doctor years ago was treating one of my kids who was having all kinds of seizures. And some of them you could interrupt. And I didn't know this. There's your grand mal seizures, then there's petit mal, then there's temporal lobe, there's focal seizures. And it seemed to be these focal seizures, when those started, if you noticed it, you could actually talk to the person or just touch them, interrupt them, distract them, and it would go away. and not develop into a big old seizure. And I kind of tried to adopt that same thing with myself. I can feel my doctor would say, you don't have to leave. I can sense you're leaving. You don't have to leave. I'd like you to stay. I'd like Maria to stay. And I would try to catch myself, like, to come back. And I would have to actually do like a body check-in and feel my heart beating, or squeeze my arm really, or I would keep rubber bands around my wrist and snap them. Anything to snap back. And that really is what it is, to come back to your senses. So that was a big grief. That I grieve. And all I could do was say, I learned from it, can't get those years back, move forward. My kids and I, they're adults. They've said, all we want to do now is move forward. And we want you to move forward. So I would have to say, I don't believe in multiple personality dissociative identity disorder as it's being taught. Still, I don't. And I really want to get the truth out about that, about how I came to myself. I came back to me. And it took a lifetime. But once I started practicing just mindfulness, being still, being accountable, asking why not? Why can't I do that? What's stopping me from doing that? Who's telling me to go sit in the corner, go rest, take a pill, go to bed? Who's telling me? You don't need to do that. We got it. Who? What? Once I started taking my life back, it went away. It went away. So it's giving yourself permission to not do and be sick. And then it's giving yourself permission to push and do what's hard and keep doing it. And pray and pace and persist. However you pray. Pace yourself to come back to yourself. Okay, so that's my little talk about grief today. I'm gonna go work on some things for the tree because I'm working all week. And I want to get some housework done. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. I'm so glad the Bills won at the end of the night. But I'm tired from staying up watching it. I used to stay up all night, and now I'm like in bed by 8 o'clock. But I mean, these are the things that as you mature, you start to do, right? So I hope everyone has a great day. And I said I would talk about grief, and probably my biggest grief is believing a lie, believing I had to be different parts, that I couldn't just be me. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.